pull that item from the agenda.
Oh, on the
Yeah,
rules of
on the-
procedure?
uh-huh.
Okay, okay.
If you don't mind.
Not at all.
On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Clark, myself, and the rest of the city commissioners, our manager Madrid, and our clerk Canton, I would like to thank you all for being here this morning and welcome you. This is our meeting of Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019. It is now 9:01. I will now call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Here.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Here.
Honorable Ralph Hischler.
Here.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Here.
Honorable George Segedi.
Here.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda this morning is silent meditation. Please join me in 15 seconds of silent meditation. Thank you. Commissioner Segedi, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item number 4, the approval of the agenda.
Madam Mayor, for our discussion, Commissioners, I would like to, on the consent calendar, pull 5, 6, and 7 off the consent calendar to be discussed after the consent calendar. And per Mayor Whitehead, I would like to pull H3 for discussion in the next meeting.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second, Mayor.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number F1, 2, 3, and 4, and to remove items 5, 6, and 7 for separate discussion, and then to completely remove item H3. All those is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Before we get started this morning, I would like to ask anyone that has a cell phone to please silence them or turn them off. Also, I would like to ask that anyone in the audience that would like to talk to someone that's in the audience while someone is speaking, to take it outside while you are talking. It's kind of disrupting to listen to someone at the podium and also pay attention to someone talking in the background. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item C, comments from the public. Remember our 3-minute rule. If there's anything that you would like to submit for commission minutes, please put it in the black box next to the podium.
Good morning, Commission. Is it working? No.
Maybe it needs batteries.
Yep. Yeah, it's not hardwired.
Sounds like it's making noise now.
Good morning, Commissioners. Congratulations,
Mayor Whitehead. I'm becoming mayor again.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome the new city manager, Manager Madrid. My name is Randy Ashbaugh, 1023 Poplar Street, Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, a lifelong resident. I'd just like to make a few comments. I want to be positive this time. I'd like to make a comment on the ATV ordinance passed. I think that is a tremendous thing for the city. There's 100 to 125,000 ATVs registered in the state of New Mexico. You can go down the road on the interstates without passing all kinds of ATVs. I'd like to see the city of TRC, the city of Elephant Butte, and the county and Williamsburg all work together to try to work out where we can become the ATV capital of New Mexico. If you ever been to Moab, I've heard about it. I've been through Moab, but it's been a long time ago. They've made a tremendous industry of it. We have a lot of trails, roads. I don't want to see them come and tear up our property, but I think this would bring a lot of people to the county. The other thing I'd like to speak is I'd like to see if we could drum up some support from the city commission here for the visitor center that was going to go up by Walmart. Virgin Galactic has gone into space, 50 plus miles. There's going to be a visitor center built somewhere in the next 1, 2, or 3 years, and I think ours is already designed. It could go to bid tomorrow morning. Yes, I'll sell a piece of property, but it would be very advantageous to have it here to bring in the tourists. Probably on the first launch, you're going to look at 100 to 200,000 people come to the Virgin's first launch out of here. I don't think it'll go into Hatch. They don't have the infrastructure, but there's big talk that the Upham Exchange is going to be modified, $14–15 million, and it could go there, and we'd be totally froze out, or it's going to go to Las Cruces. That road that comes from Upham now is very beautiful. It's a nice drive. I'd like to see us all get together and see if we can get the new spaceport built here in this next legislature, or maybe some other money that comes available. The facility can also house other tours like mining tours, the ATV tours, the Jeep tours. We could work with Turner. They all could go in there and have a pickup point, leave downtown still where we pick up people, take people through the downtown and show our nice downtown. I'd like to just bring it out in the open. I'd still like to make that land exchange up by the golf course. I have a commercial thing I'd like to do up there. It'd be very advantageous for the city, and economically wise would be tremendous. I'd also like to see a 5% fee put on all the utilities, 3 to 5%, that goes into a special fund to work on our repairs and infrastructure. If I can just have 10 more seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Ashbaugh. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Fenn. I am here to speak this morning and urge you, beg you, to opt into the Local Election Act. This is something that came out and was passed in and went into effect in July of 2018. And unfortunately, our city clerk has withheld this from a discussion at this body and any public participation on this matter until now, the 11th hour, and intending to have you folks opt out, which would leave elections in her hands. I would much rather see elections being operated by an elected official, as in our county clerk, not in a hireling who could change at any minute. And this is a the election process and the elections belong to the people. They do not belong to a clerk. They do not belong to a hired organization. They belong to the people. Our elections is where we tell government what we want. And to allow a clerk to control elections is anathema to this democratic process. I can tell you, but I would need hours to tell you what went wrong with this last election. And convince you that we need a change. And the big change would be to opt into, not out of, the Local Election Act. And today is about the last day that you can do that, because there's no more meetings before the end of January. Why this was withheld since July, who knows? I think somebody knows. But do not do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finn.
I didn't understand this was a free-for-all. I arrived here early. Okay, anyway, thank you for the opportunity anyway. My name is Ed Deans. I live on Silver Street here in town. I'm here today to represent Friends of the Pool. And first of all, I'd like to give a thanks to all of you and to the crew at the pool, the city employees there. The professionalism, the efficiency, the day-to-day running has improved so greatly, and we're very proud of that and very happy with it. And not just because my husband happens to be one of the lifeguards. As I said, I'm here representing Friends of the Pool, and the item I wanted to speak about is the visibility of the pool to visitors and to residents. Anecdotally, I've heard from many people, they don't know there's a pool here, they don't know that it's open. My orthopedist up at the hospital, who could send a lot of folks down to the pool, had no idea there was one here. And we're all concerned with the patronage, with the number of admissions to the pool. So what I'd like to address today is the signage. The signs we have right now are located, of course, at the entrance to the pool. The other ones, there are two that I have found, are at Daniels and Austin, and the other one is at that center of urban excitement, the corner of Van Patten and Post. The signs are standard, I think 18 by 18, maybe 20 by 20. They're black on white or red on white. I can't tell. I can't see red. And they simply say municipal pool. I think it would be a very good idea, Friends of the Pool thinks it would be a very good idea to improve the signage in this situation. With your approval, we would like to meet with the appropriate city department. I'm not sure what in this town it's called. It's City Works or Streets or whatever, and work on improving signage, new ones, perhaps ones that are more explanatory, with the name, the proud of our name on our pool, R.V. Hodges Pool. We'd appreciate that, a sign that would say all that. We have a few suggestions for locations, for instance, on Date, Main, Broadway. I believe the on the interstate is probably would require an act of Congress, so that's out. But we'd like to meet with that with the correct or the appropriate department and talk about the signage. Again, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Deans. Do I have any further public comment?
How do you do? My name is Jack Noel. Thank you, commissioners. We have new commissioners, we have a new mayor, we have a new city manager, and we have a new year. And I would like to sort of address the going forward in this new year about some of the issues in town, primarily, and the reason that I jumped up after Mr. Fenn was that I felt that I was in a position between Mr. Ashbaugh and Mr. Fenn. I believe that democracy was once described to me as two wolves and a sheep deciding over what they were going to have for dinner. We are a republic. Thank goodness we're not a true democracy. We, as a country, are a federal republic, and we in this chamber are a representative democracy. Consequently, those of you who sit in those chairs represent all of the people in this community rather than a different structure where each one would have a district and they would be responsible for representing those views. Consequently, what I would like to address is the off-road vehicle ordinance. It was a close race, it was a match, but democracy, representative democracy is not a football game where you go on to the state. We are trying to serve all of the people here with a vote of 50-50. It's a gift for the council people to understand that half the people in the community are for it, half the people are against it. So what I would like to recommend and ask the commission is for Commissioner Baca to sit down with perhaps 3 people on each of the 2 sides and come up with a ordinance that would meet most of the requirements for the people. Compromise is the art of being able to move forward with as few feelings hurt as possible. The issues are noise, the issues are children driving them, the issues are safety. There are a lot of issues in this, and I think that they need to be addressed. There are 3 things that I would like to talk about. One is the way that the opposition handled the petition against the ordinance that had already been passed by the commission and had been discussed for a long, long time. I felt that they were very rigid. They weren't willing to compromise or discuss or address any of the issues. It was my way or the highway. I would like to also address the front page of the Herald where Commissioner Baca, and I'm sure that you've been spoken to about this, but...
Thank you, Mr. Noel. Your 3 minutes is up.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ty Reed, and probably keep this fairly brief, but I did want to take this opportunity to express my interest in taking a management position at the golf course. There has been some discussion. I know the individual that is there right now, Bart River, and I have discussed the possibility of putting someone in that position as a city employee. And I did want to certainly take the opportunity to express my interest in that position. I'm a former member of the Professional Golfers Association of America. Since that membership over 20 years ago, I did go back to school and get my master's degree in business administration. I've been in all different sectors of the golf business, from private to public to resort to municipal. And one of the things that I think is a cornerstone that I've built over the years is taking struggling golf courses and turning them into successful golf courses, not only the bottom line, but as assets to the community. Through marketing, advertising, and promotion, which I think is something that that could very well be a big key to making this golf course be what it once was again. I've got my resume, which shows over 30 years of experience in the golf industry, as well as other aspects of business, business acumen. I'm somebody that I will deliver on, expectations, and I do things with a lot of passion, a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and if you're looking for somebody to do that with professionalism and integrity, I would be very, very excited to have this opportunity, and hopefully this is something that can be talked about very soon, so that we can hit the ground running when the weather gets a little bit warmer and the grass gets a little bit greener. I'm going to go ahead and leave my resume here in the black box. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Do we have any other public comment this morning?
Good morning, Commissioners, Mayor, Ron Kokorik. I live in TRC, and I appreciate this 3 minutes that we're allowed to voice our opinions. I'm going to talk about the vacancies in all of the boards, and I found that the advertise for those positions in a legal notice of our local paper. And for the people who are listening, it's about 1.5 by 4 inch piece of paper, And so the City of Truth or Consequences is listing names of anyone wishing to serve as a representative on the Airport Advisory Board, Impact Fee Board, Public Utility Advisory Board, Golf Course Board, and Planning and Zoning Commission. I went on the TRC website, trcmm.org, and I also saw that there's 2 vacancies on the Library Board, 2 vacancies on the Lodgers and Tax Advisory Board. That was not on this ad. Now, this ad seems a little puny for me to advertise people to volunteer to be on these boards. Now, the Planning and Zoning Board has been vacant since November of 2013. Why is that? That's a legitimate question. And I saw that also on this website that the last entry on it that I could find was on 1/15 of this year. I would think that maybe we ought to do a better job of advertising if you want people to volunteer for these vacant positions. I heard a comment at the last city commissioners that it's the people's fault because they're not volunteering. Well, when you put an ad up that's 1.5 by 4 in the legal notice of our only paper, how many people read the legal notices? I don't normally. I had to go hunt this down. So I would appreciate if y'all would maybe do, and maybe the local paper and radio station would advertise a bigger, saying that we need people to fill all these boards. And maybe the Cobblestone could do something. They seem to be real civic minded, and to advertise for all these. The Impact Fee Board, because Randy Ashbaugh resigned, we do not have a contractor now. So, and it specifically says we have to have a contractor and a realtor on that board. So as far as I'm concerned, that board is
Thank you, Mr.
defunct.
Ford. Do I have any further public comment this morning?
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Mr. Madrid, the first new city manager. I'd like to welcome you to the community.
Could I get you to state your
Oh, my
name?
name's Bill Fink. I live on 6th Street. What I wish to talk about this morning was transparency. We lack transparency in our government. We never know what's going on. We never know why it's going on. We usually don't know about it till after it's gone on. For example, we're considering a piece of land down on West Riverside. After speaking with Ms. Whitehead, I contacted first the clerk, nothing. Then I contacted Tracy Burnett. She said that she would get me the information. That was over a week ago. I still have no information. So, you know, we don't know what's going on. We don't even know why. Other things. Golf course. I know that Mr. Taylor stepped aside and 2 people have been promoted that used to work for him, but we know nothing else. We don't know. I had somebody tell me that, well, we have a nitrogen problem out there. The ground has too much nitrogen. We're test run. Where do we find these test results? We just can't. They're not out there. We also are thinking of spending money on upgrading our electric meters and water meters. Why? I mean, everybody says, well, it'll save 2 employees, but it's not going to save 2 employees because they're going to move them to another department. So we're still going to have the same salary structure. $4 million at 3% interest, because I'm assuming we're going to have to borrow this money. That's $120,000 in interest payment. We're currently paying our 2 meter readers less than $15 an hour, so that works out to less than $60,000 a year. We're going to pay more interest to save their salary so we can pay their salary in another department. There's no savings there. The old meters that people have to read to be approved have to have a accuracy of plus or minus 2%. The new meters that are read automatically, the accuracy is plus or minus 2%. So there's no gain in efficiency there. Why are we doing this? Why can't we have a public meeting and have it explained to us? I mean, there's just no information out there. And that's all I have to say, transparency.
Thank you, Mr. Fink. Is there anyone else that would like to do public comment this morning? Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll move on to our next item, which is item D, response to public comment. Do I have anybody that would like to respond to public comment this morning? I would like to respond to Mr. Finn's question regarding the election process. For years and years, the election process was always handled as it is today. This process just came into effect in 2018. I understand that the clerk's office handled this last mail-out ballot election on the ATVs. I feel, this is me personally, that the clerk's office did an outstanding job. The city clerk had her deputy clerk doing most of the job. She oversaw what was happening. The election went very smooth. The process went very well. There was a watcher that watched the process the whole morning, the whole day, that was also in opposition of this ATV ordinance. She didn't have any issues or any problems that came out of that. I know the election process, or the election itself, it was passed, not by a big margin, but the voters voted. They did what they felt they needed to do and what they wanted to do. And so I would like to thank everyone that got out and voted, that took the time to process their mail-out ballots, return them, and I thank the board that was there to process the election. I thank Ms. Tittle that was there as the watcher, and I thank our clerk's office. And I feel that they did an outstanding job. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may. I have a question, and I think it would be good to have a little clarification. We passed that ATV ordinance in August. And I remember the conversation, potentially, Commissioner Heschler, you can help me with this one, that we originally were going to go 6 months, and then we thought maybe 12 months would be better so that we had a summer season. And I amended that motion that if the police chief or anybody in the police department saw something that was a safety risk, that they would make mention to us and we would bring it back and communicate it. And I also appreciate Mr. Noel's comments because I like fair too. And I don't know how that would be handled, but back to this other issue. If we pass this in August and the voters voted in, are we looking at that 6 to 12-month trial period from August, or are we looking at it now from January? And I don't have an answer to that. Mr. Rubin, can you find out?
Comment about this. The ordinance actually didn't go into effect until actually you approved the canvassing, which is why we're on your agenda today. So if we're saying it's 6 months from the time it goes into effect, it's 6 months from today.
Okay.
And not, of course, that's not a hard and fast rule. It's always up to the commission to decide, at your discretion when you put something on the agenda. It's at your discretion. But if we're sticking with the 6 month provision, that'd be my decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Commissioner Heschler.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Yeah, that was kind of our discussion, and I really appreciate Mr. Noel's comments, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, but I think it's a little premature to start talking about regulation changes now when we don't know what the issues or the problems are going to be. But I do realize that we need to approach it sometime in the future. And I would rely on the chief of police, I would rely on our citizens to identify issues or problems that if we encounter them in the future, and there with any great frequency, that it should be brought to the city manager or to a commissioner, and we can address it then. But I would like to enact regulations to fix a problem, not in anticipation of a problem if we don't know what that problem is. And that's just my opinion. A couple of other comments. I want to thank Mr. Deems, Friends of the Pool. I think he's spot on. We have a covered pool here that's utilized in the wintertime that it's a wonderful facility. And we should do a better job advertising it. And we could advertise it on the interstate if we put a billboard up on private land. And perhaps that fund, or those funds could be made available because we would make our money back, I think, in additional patronage of that pool. And I think we should explore that and get involved in that. I think Ron Pecoric was spot on. So we do need to, if we're going to be serious about filling some of these positions, we need to do a nice advertisement in the paper, and we need to recruit. And so thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we'd like to ask the city manager to go ahead and pursue that and get that taken care of. And Mr. Bill Fate, please call me. I have some information for you on the golf course, and I'll fill you in on where we are currently and today. So with that, I'm through. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions, any other comments? Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor, for Commissioner Heschler and City Manager, just so you're aware, that is one of the things we're working on. If you'll remember, last year I brought an agenda item with more detail, that we had planned on working on a more detail for each board, so people would know exactly what vacancies we have and exactly what that board's responsible for. So we've already got that in the works, and we'll get that out as soon as we can.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any other responses to public comment this morning? Hearing none, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the consent calendar. I need a motion to approve presentations, sorry, looked right over it, excuse me. Presentations. This morning we have item E1, presentation of a commendation to Officer Joffe Bloomquist by Randall Aragon, our Chief of Police.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, Renee. Joffe, come up here. You know, with all the use of force throughout the United States, and some of it excessive, we all know what happened in Chicago with the Laquan McDonald walking away from a police officer, shot 16 times in the back, and other events such as that. Well, I was walking through the squad room a couple weeks ago, and the officers were focused in on a video from their body-worn camera, from his body-worn camera, and I was greatly impressed. It was remarkable what I saw, and Joffe, as usual, took it as, you know, as normal. But after I saw what I did, I tasked Deputy Chief Apodaca to check it out, and here's what he found. On January 2nd, 2019, at about 11:30 hours, Officer Blomquist, Officer Marin, and Detective Ontiveros went to 712 Ivy Street in reference to a warrant service on Isaac Magdaleno, who they had reason he was residing. They had a warrant on him. I viewed the body cam video from Officer Blomquist's Cobain camera. In doing so, I observed Mr. Magdaleno exit the residence, and he was holding a knife in his hand, pointed towards the officers. He approached Officer Blomquist in an aggressive manner, prompting him to draw a service pistol and pointed at Mr. Magdaleno. Officer Blomquist stepped back and ordered Mr. Magdaleno to drop the knife. Ladies and gentlemen, this normally would result in deadly force in most cities. He dropped the knife, then fled on foot, but was eventually apprehended without incident. I recommend a letter of commendation to Officer Blomquist for his restraint and calm in this tense situation. He would have been justified in lethal force in this situation, but allowed just enough time for Mr. Magdaleno to comply with his commands. It is always a pleasure to see officers of our department performing at a high level when faced with high-stress situations. And Officer Blomquist's actions on that day is a shining example of that. Officer Blomquist has been with us 16 months. He just completed his FPO training just several months ago. This is remarkable, and I must say it is commendable. And Officer Blomquist, we worked up this certificate, seal, ribbons, and I want to present this to you. And it reads, this is the essence of what happened. Certificate of commendation presented to Officer Jaffe Blomquist for your admirable restraint in not employing deadly force when such was warranted with an armed perpetrator on January 2nd, 2019. Signed by the City Manager, Morris Madrid, and myself, Chief Police Randall Aragon. Jaffe, job well done.
Jaffe, don't go anywhere. On behalf of the City of Truth or Consequences, City Commissioners, Manager Madrid, our City Clerk Canton, I would like to also, or we would like to also, honor you with this Certificate of Appreciation that reads, Certificate of Appreciation presented to Jaffe Blomquist with our sincerest appreciation and recognition for a selfless action and displaying admirable restraint in not employing deadly force when such was warranted with an armed predator on January 2nd, 2019. We commend you, and your actions do not go unnoticed. Dated this 23rd day of January 2019, signed by myself, Sandra Whitehead, Mayor, Morris Madrid, City Manager, and Clerk Renee Canton.
Jaffe, you want to say something?
Thank you.
No?
And again, thank you. Our next item on the agenda this morning is item F, consent calendar. I need a motion to approve item F1, City Commission special meeting minutes, December 19th, 2018. Item F2, Airport Advisory Board minutes, October 2nd, 2018. F3, accept the canvass for January 15th, 2019 special municipal election. And item F4, appointment of Kay Thompson to the Golf Course Advisory Board.
Mayor, there were some corrections or questions by Commissioner Seghetti.
Oh, yes. I think those were already corrected. Those were submitted to the clerk.
Okay,
and
so
she
the yellow line.
She corrected them. They were typos.
Yes.
Okay.
And I
Copy, do you have a copy?
I have a copy.
And there is a copy in the packet. Did you take care of yours?
My correction, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So do I have a motion to approve as noted?
I so move.
Okay. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar of F1, F2, F3, and F4. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is F5 under consent calendar, discussion action, award IFB 1819-006 WWTP and lift station improvements Phase 2B.
Morning, Mayor,
Thank
Commissioners. We're here to award IFB 18-19-006 wastewater treatment plant and lift station improvements Phase 2B. A bid open was held on Tuesday, December 18th at 2 p.m. We received 2 bids for this project. One from RMCI Incorporated, Smithco Construction Incorporated. Smith Engineering evaluated the bids, and they are making a recommendation to award the bid to RMCI, the base bid only, and the total cost of $3,910,882.52, including GRT. Pending, and this is pending on USDA approval. It still has to go back to USDA for approval. over the government shutdown. And Mr. Smith, Dave from Smith Engineering, is here too. Do you have any questions?
Commissioners, nice to talk to you today. I thought I'd help out here a little bit. I'm Dave Schmidt with Smith Engineering.
Thank you.
The recommendation award, just for clarification, is as she said, just for the base bid, so that you have money that can also cover contingency should it come up in construction. As she pointed out, USDA, who is the funding source for this project, because it's a loan grant combination, and I would just mention that even though that number is an enormous number, Tracy Burnett did a very good job getting an excellent grant loan combination. So there's $4 million of grant that's going to help cover that. It's not all coming out of your pocket. But after you give tentative award to RMCI, then we have to send paperwork to USDA, and then they provide concurrence, and then you can give the official notice of award to RMCI. So as you know, with the government shutdown, that might take a while. But it'd be, once you give this notice of award tentatively, we just have to get them to basically give a stamp of approval onto it, and then we'll move forward. So just to clarify, because USDA adds that extra layer of approval, but it's mostly just concurring with what you do. So.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, any comments? Commissioner Clark?
Yeah, this one and number 7, I have a little bit of a question on. Maybe I can just ask Manager Madrid the question first before we get much further.
Sure.
And that is that I don't know that we've given him enough time to really look at our debt structure of the city, what we can and cannot afford, and where these monies are going to be coming from. And I would like to ask you if you feel like you've had enough time to look into that. Are you comfortable making a decision on $3 million and several other $1 million, and what the contingencies with USDA are?
Commissioner, yes, based on the funding source, and we're not financing it, you're absolutely correct. I do need to review the city's overall debt structure, short and long term, because this is a specifically funded project. I did meet with our consultant, with the engineer, and go through the whole process from beginning to end to make sure that we're all comfortable with the way that the bid packet was formulated, with the design, with the process that was undertaken, and with the construction management from beginning to end. I know that the city has had issues with some contractors and some engineering firms, and I wanted to make sure that those issues will not reoccur. So we had a pretty lengthy meeting just to make sure that everyone's roles and responsibilities are understood, and this is going to be one of the projects that I'll be very closely involved with.
Okay, did that answer my question?
I hope so.
That's the question.
The meeting that he's referring to happened last week, so he was brought up to speed on a lot of things prior to this meeting. And again, of the approximately total budget that you're getting from USDA of about $5.2 million, $700,000 is a loan that the city has to deal with. The rest is all grant money. It's all essentially free money from the government. So even though it's a very large number, you have a fantastic grant to take advantage of. So,
do we need to have phase 1 entirely completed and signed off on before we can go into phase 2 with USDA?
No. The previous phase also has NMFA funding too, so you don't have to have it totally finished off. And also, I would say that given the government review, the federal government review, it's going to be a while before we can even break ground, because USDA has to concur with what you've decided. And I unfortunately think that's going to take maybe as much as 4 more weeks, because we'll submit the paperwork, pending your approval here, immediately to them. But I bet you it's going to sit on their desk for quite a while, because I bet you they got a pile like this now. So it's an unfortunate situation.
So the $700,000 be coming out of the wastewater treatment enterprise, and then
Yes.
it's going to be obligated or regulated by the USDA
That's
restrictions, correct? So
And-
do we have that in there?
Yes.
Okay.
To further answer a piece of your question, Commissioner, we took the opportunity at that meeting to hopefully resolve issues that we had with Phase 1 and to close out of that project. We have some issues that on the punch list that we were not satisfied were being done on a timely basis. So those have been addressed, and hopefully that'll be closed out real soon.
Thank you very much, Manager. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion, any other comments, questions? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to approve.
Mayor, I'll make that motion. I'd like to move that we award IFB 18-19006 wastewater treatment plant and lift station improvements Phase 2B. That award to RMCI Incorporated as presented by Pat Wood, with the pending approval of the USDA in the amount of $3,910,882.50. Do
I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to award IFB 18-19006 WWTP and lift station improvement Phase 2B. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item F6, discussion action award RFP 18-19-004 engineering services for water system improvements. Pat?
Good morning. We're here to award RFP 18-19-004 engineering services for wastewater system improvements. We received proposals until Tuesday, December 11th at 2 p.m. We received 3 proposals for these services, one from JEL and Associates, WH Pacific, and Wilson and Company. We had a selection committee that evaluated the proposals, and they have made a recommendation to award the contract to Wilson and Company, and we're requesting for the city manager to be able to approve, negotiate a professional's contract with Wilson and Company, and again, this is pending USDA concurrence.
Thank you. Do I have any questions, comments, discussion?
Ms. Wood, it's printed on this agenda, water system improvements, and I believe I heard you say wastewater?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, it's water.
Okay.
Sorry. Services for water system improvement.
Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, I reviewed the process from the beginning to the end in the selection of the engineering services. I would have expected a few more proposals, but the pool was adequate, the process was good, and I concur with the recommendation. I didn't participate in it, but it was sound and it was standard practice. So the evaluation procedure was good.
Thank you, Manager Madrid. Is there any further questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I'll stand for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make that motion. I'd like to make a motion that we award RFP 18-19-004 engineering services for water systems improvements. I believe it was Wilson and Company?
Yes, sir.
As presented by Pat Wood.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to award RFP 18-19-004 engineering services for water system improvements as presented by Pat Wood. Is there any further discussion, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item F7, discussion action. Approve the resumes of the individual potentially performing resident project representatives, RPR services provided by Smith Engineering during the construction of WWTP improvements for Phase 2B, pending USD-RD concurrence. Tracy?
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, and Manager Madrid. So one of the requirements of USDA funding is our City Commission does have to approve our resident project representatives. These will be the representatives out there on site during construction. And they're part of Smith Engineering firm, and we contracted with Smith Engineering back in May of 2017 as our engineers for Phase 2B of the wastewater treatment plant. I do have Dave Schwent here in the audience from Smith Engineering. If you do have any questions, they are employed by Smith. Otherwise, you guys have the resumes, and USDA requires concurrence, and once again, it'll be pending, your approval will be pending USDA concurrence, since they also have to approve. So, I stand for any questions.
I have a question there. Do we have a track record now with Smith Engineering, and what is that track record, and how have we fared so far with the sewage treatment plant?
So we have been with, I believe, the original contract with Smith Engineering for the Phase 1 services, I want to say was maybe back in 2013, 2014. So they were our engineers on record for Phase 1, which is USDA funded, and it's completed and done, closed out. They were also our engineers on record for Phase 2A, which is our Colonias funding that we received, also loan grant combinations. Those are where we're having some warranty work that is still needing to be completed, so it hasn't completely closed out at this time. And then Phase 2B with the USDA funding as well.
Thank you. And I'd like to ask the city manager if he's had a chance to review this and where we stand.
Yeah, along with the RFP process itself, the resumes that are submitted, they do meet, they're above and beyond the requirements for experience and education. So the resumes look completely in order.
Thank you, sir.
And Ms. Tracy, each one of these representatives will be on site when they're needed, right? Or
Yeah, it's a pool that they choose from, and I think some of it comes down to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, some of it comes down to who's available at the time we're doing construction. They may not all four be available, but these are one of four, maybe one of four that would be
would be available.
Correct.
Okay.
She's correct, and one of them in particular will do special inspections of the time that was in there.
Okay.
So the other three will alternate if need be. We'll try and keep as much continuity as possible, primarily with James. But Todd will come in for special inspections, and it'll be a combination of the four, with the bulk being James and Tim.
And James is who we've had out there for, I believe, the majority of Phase 2A,
correct.
and has worked great with both the contractors as well as our employees out at the wastewater plant, and is a go-between,
Thank you. I stand for a motion. Is there any other comments or questions? No, I stand for a motion.
Mayor Whitehead, I move to approve the resumes of the individuals potentially performing resident project representative services provided by Smith Engineering during the construction of the wastewater treatment plant improvements for Phase 2B, pending USDA RD concurrence.
And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the resumes of the individuals potentially performing resident project representative RPR services provided by Smith Engineering during the construction of WWTP improvements for Phase 2, pending USD RD concurrence. Is there any further discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda this morning is item G, ordinance, resolutions, and zoning. G1, discussion action, resolution number 2018-19 budget adjustment. Melissa Torres, Finance Director.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. The City of Truth or Consequences is respectively requesting the following budget adjustments. General Fund Revenue, Fund 101, increase $15,000. This increase of $15,000 for the revenue will help us balance the additional expense we will have for the attorney fees. General Fund Expense, Fund 101, $15,000. Again, that will cover those. Expense Main Street, Fund 216, $20,000 expense. This will be for the Main Street block grant that we will be assisting with. And finally, expense 506 for the water wastewater for $20,000, and this will be for professional service in regards to our independent consultant right now. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Melissa. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns? Manager Madrid?
No, they're pretty straightforward, and this is just one of the initial steps. You'll see some increased expenses for two types of consultants in there. That's one of the things that we will be reviewing as part of our overall budget review, and I'll explain that a little bit later in my report. But I concur with the Finance Director and recommend your approval.
Thank you. Do I have any further questions, comments, discussion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a couple of comments. In regards to attorney fees, just to get it out there and have it be said. I think we've expended our attorney fees almost for the year already, and I understand the need for that without a city manager for quite some time. So I'm okay with that for now, but I'm hoping that in the future that we're a little more prudent in the way we use city attorneys and who has access to the city attorneys and how often we call the city attorneys. A couple of concerns I have is that on several times we may call both city attorneys for the same issue. And when we call both city attorneys for the same issue, guess what? We get bills from both attorneys, whether it be John DeFeo and Mr. J. Rubin at the same time. I also would recommend that all staff that need to have the services of city attorney go through the city manager, and that we do not call as a staff independently to the city attorney or to Mr. Appel, just in the interest of trying to reduce some of those costs. And I would hope that now that we have the service of Mr. Madrid on station, that we make more informed decisions and that we can make better decisions in-house also to avoid exorbitant or those additional attorney fees that we should be trying to reduce. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hetzler. Do we have any other comments? Manager Madrid?
Commissioner, your comments are well taken. The directive that all requests for legal services from staff go through me was issued last week. So I absolutely concur with your comment. Not as much as a cost control issue as an information issue, because now that you do have a permanent city manager, I would expect your city manager to be able to resolve a lot of those questions without staff. I think in the past, staff was looking for more direction and decision than legal advice, and that's something that they should get from me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Manager Madrid.
Since we're talking about attorney fees, maybe I can help you out, make a couple of comments here that
Attorney Rubin.
make you feel a little bit better about the process. You know, I was looking at my billings for the past year, and most of the months that I had were basically comparable to all the months I've had in all my tenure as the city attorney. There were a couple months where we were higher than usual because, mainly because there was a lot more litigation I had to handle. We had the lawsuit involved in the property on Silver Street. And it just so happened that I had one month where I just had an exorbitant number of cases in municipal court where I was handling prosecutions of various crimes such as DWIs, for example, that I just had to spend just some time on. I haven't really seen Mr. Appel's bill, but I understand probably his bill was probably higher than usual, and he had, I guess, litigation he's handling for the city. And I think there's also some time he has spent for the impact fee study, for example. So the most important thing I want to emphasize, any work I've ever done for the city has always been authorized by the city. I don't want anybody to get the notion I sit in my office and say, okay, I'm going to do some work here, and then I'm going to go ahead and bill the city. Anytime I've ever done anything, I've always gotten prior authorization from the city. Now, in that spirit, I had an excellent meeting yesterday with the city manager, Mr. Madrid, and I went through all different projects I'm working on in the city right now, and we discussed the plan of action for each case I'm handling, each project I'm handling, and that's the way I've always done this, and I'm going to continue to do it. We were pretty busy last year. There's a lot of things that I had to help the city out, and I was very proud to do it, but, the procedure that I continue to follow will always be the same, so you can rest assured that's the way I handle things here.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin. Do I have any further discussion, comments?
Commissioner Hetzler, I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I myself have called the lawyers every once in a while, but it's usually a research project that either for this commission meeting and/or something that the city manager has not been able to answer. And I believe that the commission has the right to be able to go to a lawyer. That's kind of the way our organizational chart is set up. And thank you for this staff issue, because I think that's very important. But the thing that's frustrating to me, Mr. Rubin, is all of these suits that we ended up in. And, you know, the one on Cobra and the Hot Springs land development doesn't ever go away. And then we've approved the one for St. Augustine Plains, and we've got the impact fee ones. And it's just really frustrating sometimes when we know that there's a lot of money going out for some of those things that maybe could have been handled without having to go to court, if we had, you know, been able to sit down with the people and talk to them in a proper fashion. So I'm looking at you, Manager.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion. I move to approve resolution number 23-1819, resolution requesting budget adjustments in the revenue and expenditure budget for fiscal year 2018-19 as presented and noted by Melissa Torres, our Finance Director.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Heshler.
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Yes.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Aye.
Honorable George Segedi.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item G2, discussion action resolution number 24, 2018-2019, creating a Sierra County Complete Count Committee, SCCCC, for Census 2020. Paul Dolan, U.S. Census Bureau, and Renee Canton, our city clerk. Thank you.
You just came in, so I figured
Thank you.
if the other commission members want, they can have a card.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. So as you can see from your commission action form, I had met with Mr. Doolin a little while back, and the census is requesting the community, each community to consider creating a complete count committee. And this is for the upcoming 2020 census. I won't go into detail because he's got a wonderful presentation and PowerPoint to bring to you. The committee would be instrumental in helping get the word out for citizens to comply with the census count, which would be a tremendous asset for our community and our county. Communities rely on those statistics to plan for a lot of the resident needs, including new roads, schools, emergency services, and businesses also use that data to determine where to open places to shop. So, you know, economic development, all of the above. So in a discussion with the county manager, Bruce Swingle, we feel that it would greatly benefit our entire county if we join efforts with the county, the Village of Williamsburg, City of Elephant Butte, any school districts, churches, business community, nonprofits, healthcare, and other unincorporated areas, as I'm sure you're going to see in Mr. Doolin's presentation. You know, that they're requesting to include all of those, and we feel it's a lot better for us to have one all-encompassing committee rather than have quite a few in the county that may be working against each other. So with that, you do have a draft of the resolution, and I did hand out a proposed revision that has been sent to the county manager, and we'll wait concurrence with the other entities, Williamsburg and Elephant Butte, if they would like to also proceed. So with that, I'm going to open it up to Mr. Doolin and let him give his presentation. Right and left. Right and left. And then at the end of his presentation, of course, we would like to request that the commission consider passing the resolution.
Good evening, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for having me, Madam Mayor, and the new county manager, welcome. And also the commission members, thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to be as quick as possible and give you just 16 slides about, hopefully this will answer a lot of the questions about the census, which comes up in the year 2020, about 15 months from now. April 1st is Census Day. So let's see. Why do we have a census? It's required under the Constitution. We said the Pledge of Allegiance to our country today. This is the Constitution. Article 1, the very first article, the second section, requires that every 10 years we do an accounting of the people that have impact on our resources. And this is about the impact on your resources, as opposed to whether or not they live in your area part of the year, the full year, or whatever. It's about your roads, it's about your water, it's about your wastewater. I heard a lot of the things today that this is about. You mentioned the USDA rural development, and they use census data to determine whether or not you should have so many dollars in your wastewater treatment plant. The apportionment it doesn't affect so much this state because we do not have a huge increase in population. However, if we undercount, we could lose a representative. We have 3 representatives in the state. If you look at the ones that gained and lost in the years past based on the 2010 census, it's these that are in that slide. This is about money. Data is dollars. And for everything, every person you undercount is $3,000 per year. So if you undercount by 20,000 people, you're out $6 million over a 10-year period. So it's important to have an accurate count, as accurate as possible. In the year 2000, we had a 2% undercount for New Mexico. It's estimated we had a 1% 2010. That means millions and millions of dollars. We're talking about over 10 years the state received $6 billion. And you have in front of you a study that was done by George Washington University, and you can see that everything mentioned, everything that you deal with, everything that happens in this community has some type of matching that comes from the federal government. And the biggest in probably this community is Medicaid and SNAP. And this covers a lot of the people that cannot afford things themselves. We have a protective, a safety net. And you can see $6 billion, more than $6 billion, and this is per annum. Every year it would have an impact, the census. So the census numbers, data is dollars. The collection dates for the census, we're talking about a 10-question form this year, not the long form. The long form is done every year by the American Community Survey. They decided way back when, I think after the 2000, to get rid of the long form, so it's a lot quicker. This is a centennial every 10-year census. So you can see these dates. I will not go through every one, but where are we on the curve? If April 1st, 2020 is Census Day, we have just 15 months to figure it all out. And the best preparation means that the census will happen very uniformly. Already you have been tapped, the county has been tapped for all their GPS data, where are the edifices, and they'll put addresses on those different buildings. We want you to pass a resolution with the county and with the other municipalities. It is suggested. This Bruce Swingle and Renee came up with this idea of having one, but it's more efficient than having numerous committees. Now, one way to count those is having numerous committees, but they tend to cannibalize each other, and you know, people get tired of going to so many meetings. You remember the city one, you remember the county one, you remember the faith-based organization, and you stop going to committee meetings. So we want to have one and have it very inclusive. The structure depends on you. It depends on who you invite to the committee. The committee should be, the complete count committee should be inclusive. You should include the hospitals. You should include the veterans home. You should include the school district. You should include the people that represent those that are hard to count. Who are the hard to count? The hard to count are the immigrants, the Spanish-speaking only, the people that live in poverty, the homeless. They are not counted. They're hard to count. However, they have an impact on your resources. They drink your water. They use your toilets. They use the electricity, et cetera, et cetera. They use the roads. In other words, we want to count everybody that has an impact on the resources within this county. And this is an idea of the complete count committee formation. If you look around that circle, you'll see just about everybody. Every community is different. The county is different. However, most of the organizations within the county live in the county seat, which is Truth or Consequences. And we don't want the county to have a committee and the city to have a committee because it could impact one and the other. But you see that the mayor and county chair are determine you as a commission, and the county commission will determine who should be on the committee. How often will the committee meet? That depends on you. The strategic plan, that depends on you. But why do we need a complete count committee? It's to know where the hard to count are and develop the strategies to make sure we have an accurate count. So we have a mobilization process. We are between the education and promotion phases right now. We're trying to bring you awareness. We want you to, through the complete count committee, they'll go back to their constituents and tell them about the census. So this is about raising awareness that the census is coming, and on Census Day, fill out your form and send it back. This year we have the paper form, which is the normal thing. You can, if you want, answer by telephone. You can answer with your cell phone. You can answer by internet. We've already had some suggestions that for Spanish-speaking only old people, they need someone to help them fill out their own census forms. We can do that. This depends on you and what you come up with. I want to show you that New Mexico is probably the worst out of 50 states as far as returning your census form. And if you look, Sierra County has a part, the western part. Sierra County, the western part, is very difficult to count. We had probably a 35% of what we call non-response in that area. And this is the communities of Array, some rural communities within the western part, ranches, etc., small population centers that are unincorporated. We have to track those down. It costs a lot of money to send somebody out to knock on the door to find out if they live there and how many people live in that home. So we want to reduce that as much as possible and save money. Everybody is for saving money, so especially if it means data means dollars. We have what we call the Response Outreach Area Mapper. This is Doña Ana County, and to the north of that is Sierra County, just an example. The census tract tracks everybody that had a response on the first, that filled out their paper form and sent it back. So they hard to count are the people you have to send out and track down. And this gives you an idea geographically where your hard to count live. And if you look at each census tract, it'll give you the data based on the American Community Survey. The data, how many rental properties are in the area? What's the poverty level? How many people live in that census tract? How many people have a college education, etc.? Who's Hispanic? Who's white? Who's black? Who's red? It doesn't matter. This type of information will help you develop a strategy to reach those hard to count within that census tract, especially those that the response area mapper found that are hard to count. We do have a toolkit available online. The schools can use it. They can get into, have projects based on the census. We encourage that to the schools, that they use a toolkit to have census practice and census problems determined by the school. And we just in New Mexico are going to hire tens of thousands of people. Mostly these are door knockers, enumerators. However, there are people like me who still have, today, they released several more jobs, partnership specialists for New Mexico. They have area census office people. They have administrators. They have field people. Anyway, it's 2020census.gov/jobs. If you have people who are looking for work, I have some cards. I'd be happy to give you those. But this is to find out about those jobs. Use that website. The critical steps are, and this is where I come in. I'm a resource to this commission. I was hired to be a resource to you, to the city manager, to the city clerk, to the mayor, to all of you, to help you with your complete count committee. I'll come to the meetings. I'll help you recruit people and tell them, give them the same presentation about the importance of the census and the importance and the hard to count, especially this year. It's going to be difficult. Those that are documented, undocumented, those that are recent immigrants, those who are foreign born, the refusers, etc. We have to dispel the myths. Dispel the myths. We are bound to keep the information confidential for 72 years. I'll be dead by then, so it doesn't matter. So 72 years is a long time. We have to keep the information. It is not shared with Border Patrol. It is not shared with the police department, sorry. This type of information is only for the census, and very important to know that. As far as the process is concerned, the first thing is complete count committee. What is the strategy? It affects how many people you deploy to knock on doors. It affects how many people will respond on their paper that's sent out, the 10 questions that are sent to their home. It has an impact on everything we do. And again, data is dollars, and April 1st is Census Day. We want to count that person one time and at one place. So we also have what we call group quarters. These are your RV parks. These are your hospitals. These are your seniors' homes. These are where the homeless hang out. If you have those in this county, anywhere in the county, we have ways to count those. And that's it. And I will put very first slide. I'm responsible for the, there we go. I'm responsible for the Southwest. I have about 7, 8 counties, including Catherine County, which has been the most difficult in the United States, a 45% return rate. At least they won something. They won that misnomer. At any rate, my counterpart is Elaine Avina. She has the Southeast. She's over in Roswell today as we're speaking. So anyway, I stand for questions. I will answer as many questions as possible. I hope you will consider the resolution. And I like the idea that both Renee and Bruce Swingle, who was the county manager, came up with having one single committee for the county, as opposed to numerous committees, which other people do, but primarily in larger metropolitan areas.
Thank you. Questions, comments, Manager Madrid?
One comment,
yes, sir.
Mayor. In a meeting with our state representative, Rebecca Dow, a couple of weeks ago, Renee, she recommended this type of approach in complete count and coordinating, collaborating with other entities in the southern part of the state. So that's from our state representative. I think that's a major consideration.
Thank you, Manager Madrid. Commissioner Clark.
Mr. Dolan, if you don't mind.
Please.
There's 3 things I wrote down here. One, I love the idea of confidential information. I still think that, and the question is out there, are you certain that the U.S. government couldn't requisition that information from you?
We are sworn the very first day when we come in for the job, we came in for the job, we are sworn by law to maintain confidentiality. So I'm supposed to take the information to the grave with me, and so I would say anything is possible, but for right now, the information is confidential. No matter what happens, it cannot be used to, for instance, for police reasons or for Border Patrol or for immigration reasons. That information is just to determine where people live, what impact they have on the resource. And personal identifier information is not used. Only statistics are.
So if someone told you that they were an illegal alien and you wouldn't write that down, you just
No,
write down the income and
it
where
currently
they
is not a
live.
question. There
It's not
is,
a question.
before the Supreme Court to be decided in March whether or not,
They're gonna
said
decide
person
in
is
March
US
if they're
citizen.
gonna make
Yeah,
it.
Supposedly. There's been, the state of New Mexico was in a suit, that was decided in New York. If you remember, a district judge there decided against the Department of Commerce that I work for. by the way.
Right, but we have a new Supreme Court, so we don't
That's
know what
correct.
that's.
It'll go all the way.
what's-
It'll be,
it could happen. Another question I have is, I remember some people being hired here in the last census, which was.
2010.
Yeah, and they were local people, so that the monies that get paid for the canvassing gets to stay, so it's like a part-time job for some of these people who
That's
are
correct.
retired, and it puts a couple extra dollars in their pocket. So you're looking for local people to fill those positions? Is that
Yes,
correct?
especially the enumerators. I was asked what the going rate is. It's at least $13.50, $14 an hour for the lowest paid person that may be. The idea about the complete count committee is we learn, the Census Bureau learns from you. You know where the hard to count are, and you will come up with approaches, I assume, on how to reach them, whether through the faith-based community or the schools or the hospital or whatever. It's important to know, and that intelligence gives us the intelligence we need to hire people and to send them out to knock on doors. But again, the idea of the complete count committee is to get the information out, to dispel the myths, and to get as high a count, instead of 35% or whatever it is for this county, we want it down to 20% or 15% that don't respond. We want to reduce the non-response percentage.
And then you call them door knockers.
Enumerators.
I mean, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I would say it's not a problem to knock on anybody's door in a neighborhood. But I'm not sure that knocking on everybody's door anymore is so safe.
Right.
Have you been through that?
It has come up before, and I would say there are challenges. And the idea of having an area office and having the personnel, we had a person warn us in Doña County that a certain neighborhood is dangerous because of dogs. Everybody has a dog in their yard, so what do you do? Does the enumerator come with a policeman? Or that was a question that we had to answer. And probably not. This comes from you, the complete count committee, if certain neighborhoods are dangerous, and what approach do you have to going to that neighborhood? I think we will react to the information we're given.
So, for example, back to the door knocker comment. So, if you're looking at, like, we don't really necessarily have a neighborhood, but we've isolated, Chief, right? We've isolated some homes that we know are probably a little more questionable than others. Do you work with the police department to kind of figure out what those might be?
We would use a complete count committee, and since it's organized by the city, the municipalities, as well as the county, the use of the police will be up to the committee to impart information. We do not, I will not ask him for information directly.
Oh, can we remember that? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Are there any further questions? Commissioner Heschler?
Mr. Dillon, good morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a general question. What do you do with an entity that's housed in Sierra County, but all the workforce comes from Doña Ana County? How is that counted? Because the impact is in Sierra County, water, roads, infrastructure, things of that nature, but the workforce all comes from Doña Ana County. How is that counted, or is that counted, or what contingencies are there?
We use residents as a basis for counting noses. So if this comes back to the RV parks, are they there on the first? How many months of the year are they there? Another question came up about universities. For 9 months in a year, they sit in Silver City, or they sit in Las Cruces or whatever. That we call those group quarters. These are people that they may come from another jurisdiction within the state or out of the state, and normally a person is trying to fill out their census form saying, I have a son who's 18 years old, I have a daughter who's 20 years old, but they are a resident at Las Cruces or Silver City, so we count them there. So if they go home every day to Doña County, then that's probably a question we would consider. But normally, it's if they live here, if they have impact, if they use the water. You mentioned that they use the water. A lot of construction people do. They come in and fill their tankers, but they usually pay for the water, or they should pay. Some of these things would be determined by you and not so much by the system.
Thank you. Do I have any further questions, comments?
Madam Mayor, if I might add that I was saving that for Representative Zhao's support for to drive it home. So I didn't forget it, City Manager, but that's very important as well.
There will be a state count, complete count committee, where we have an audience with the new governor, I think, at the end of this week. And the idea is that everybody works together, so you'd have a thread between this community, your local representative, your state representative, your state senator, should be probably a member or have a designate to your committee. Know that you're having a committee, advise them what you're coming up with. So it's important that everybody work together on this, and we have the most accurate county. We have almost $3,000 per capita per year. Texas is half that. So it's very important, the federal money, the federal outlay. You mentioned USDA rural development this morning. It's responsible for like 80% of your project. If you have a real low census numbers, or if you miss the count, then you will not get that amount of money. You'll get a proportion based on the population. So it's important to have an accurate count.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion.
Actually, a question I have, I was looking at the resolution, just trying to see really what our duties or obligations are under this. I don't know that. Is there anything we're supposed to be doing with this resolution? I didn't really know.
The issue with the resolution is just to create an effort on the part of in this case, the Commission of Truth and Consequences and the county to work together to try to get an accurate count within the county. There's nothing contractual involved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin.
Mayor Whitehead, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
And that is to approve resolution number 24, 2018/2019, to create a Sierra County Complete Count Committee for Census 2020, as presented by our clerk, Renee Canton, and Mr. Dillon from the U.S. Census Bureau.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I do have one question. Renee, have all the other municipalities, the village, and I know the county's on board with this, but the village and Elephant Butte, do they feel the same concurrence of coming together as one committee?
In our initial discussions, yes. They haven't approved of this draft of the resolution, and of course I just looked online for their meeting dates and such, so there may be some minor corrections to that. And if there's anything major, of course, we'll bring it back. But
Okay, thank you, Clerk Canton. Is there any further comments? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Eschler.
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Yes.
Honorable George Leggetti.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item G3, discussion action resolution number 25, 2018-2019, confirming the continuation of municipal elections to be conducted on municipal officer election day in March of even years. Renee Canton, our city clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. So, feel compelled to explain in much greater detail because of our public comment, the reason that this option is being brought to you today. I'll start with your background that's in your commission. Last year, as you may or may not recall, those of you who were here, I served as the co-chair of the New Mexico Clerks and Finance Officers Association and Election Committee, and also as past president. They kind of lean on me a lot for certain things. Along with the other officers for the CFOA, I attended quite a few of the hearings at the Capitol related to the Local Election Act bill, and I was also requested to be an expert witness for those portions of the hearings, mostly because a lot of the other clerks wouldn't bother to get up, and so that was quite an honor. That bill, where the clerks in all the municipalities were going to be required to have the county clerks run our elections, did not end up passing because the governor actually pocket vetoed that one. Then last year, we finally worked with Senator Ivy Soto, the Clerks Association, and the Municipal League officials, their board and everything, with Senator Ivy Soto on some changes that municipalities could actually live with for that Local Election Act bill, and that one passed. So one of the changes in that bill included the option for local governing bodies to have to be able to opt in to the Local Election Act if they decided if they prefer the county clerks to administer their elections. And those would be held with other nonpartisan elections, including school boards, soil water conservation districts, there's a few other the special districts, and those would also be changed to November of the odd number years. And again, it would be combined with the other nonpartisan group elections. So your ballot would have all of those items on it. The committee decided it would be a good idea for communities who plan to have their municipal clerks run the election to officially approve something, so we came up with the resolution you have before you. It's not a requirement of the Secretary of State's office. The only requirement is to opt in is to pass an ordinance. And so with all of the past few months' excitement and everything, the dates kind of got up to us, so I wanted to be sure to bring this to you. And if you'll recall, last year, actually it was the end of 2017, I believe, the commission approved, and I brought a couple times actually, the commission approved the resolution supporting opposing the original Local Election Act, where we would have the county clerks run our elections. So with that, I just had held on, and I had been in communication with most of the commission over the item, and it was my understanding that we wanted to continue with our own elections and us running it. As you know, the special election was our first bout on the Local Election Act changes, and part of those changes was they repealed the municipal election code, of which some clerks call it our Bible, and they combined it with the state election code. So now we're under their rules, their laws, and it's actually been a good benefit. With the special election, that's what required us to go by mail, and now any special election would be by mail. Unfortunately, the costs of that were unknown at this time, and we did have additional costs, which were almost done with the reporting on, so we will notify the commission what that special election cost. I believe it ended up being somewhere around $11,000 to $12,000 for the special election. So with that, what I would like to give you some pros and cons as the city manager thought that'd be a good idea of what would be the best for our community. Some of the cons, the pros for us running our own election is we won't have an elected, the county clerk although amazing, and we have an amazing working relationship, is also partisan, and she does run under a party affiliation. And of course, municipal elections are nonpartisan. We do not allow or use anybody's party or anything. And, you know, we don't have to have an even precinct board, anything like that. Other things that are a pro is that municipal clerks or myself, I have a better idea of what your real issues are to where a county clerk would not. If somebody comes in to file to be a candidate, they wouldn't necessarily have all of that information or what a city commissioner basically does. The other thing is the ballots, as you can imagine with school board elections, soil water conservation, other nonpartisans, and there's 3 or 4, would all be on that same ballot. And those election days, instead of March of the even years, as we're used to, would be changed to November of odd years. So it wouldn't be with the primary of the general, with the partisan ballot. It would still be a nonpartisan ballot, but there would be other items on that ballot. So the cons, that's kind of one of the cons as well. You have those numerous items and numerous entities on one ballot. The early voting, although the county clerk, we did enter a provision for this year for a cleanup bill where the county clerk can allow a municipality to be early voting, as most people are used to, which would help with us allowing, giving more information on what a city commissioner does. And also the price is really kind of questionable. They make it very enticing, because I believe it's the cost in the beginning is much lower. If for some reason we were to have a question on the ballot and the ballot went to a second page, it would be on the municipality to pay for that additional fee, and there's a lot of additional fees that would be added on for if we were to opt in. So my recommendation at this point, and then I'll open it up for questions, is to just proceed with what, you know, the commission supported in the beginning, to keep our own elections, for that we would continue in March of even numbered years. And it doesn't mean that we cannot change it in the future, which, as I mentioned on the cleanup bill, we met with Senator Ivy Soto on the 300-page cleanup bill. And so the municipal clerks, and on both sides, those who have opted in, those who are not opting in, had given a lot of great input. So we were able to be a lot bigger part of that cleanup bill, and certain things like candidate filing day and allowing a write-in candidate and things like that. So with that, at this point, I would recommend to the commission that we continue and not opt in at this point. We can still opt in the future at any time, and he may, part of the cleanup bill was we would have until June to decide that. And if we did choose to opt in, there's other different options that the commission would need to look at, including whether you reduce your current term that you were elected for, or for the November of 1919 election, or whether you extend your term and not run until 2021. So there's a lot of different options. It's up to the commission. Obviously, it's ultimately your decision. But I wanted to make sure to bring it to your attention so we could proceed in whatever manner you wish to.
Thank you, Clerk Canton. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah.
Manager Madrid, do you have anything?
First, Mayor, I'd like to concur with the clerk's recommendation for a couple of reasons. I think, especially in a small community, having your own individual, unique election it forces the voters to be more focused on the selection of their representatives, their public officials. That's one thing. The other thing is, as she stated, you can keep this book open for the future. And maybe the initiative should be to coincide with any future change in compensation for the elected officials, so it can all be one coordinated plan. This is when, if there's going to be a change, then it will be in the future. If there's going to be a change in compensation, that's planned for the future, so that it's not disruptive. I know personally, if there was a great interest in a national election, a state election, and I had so many items on the ballot, I wouldn't want my vote to be just incidental when I got down to the city's portion, and I had already checked off 20 boxes, and I was tired of looking at them. I think that local officials deserve more consideration than that, and I think this initiative would keep it that way.
Thank you, Mr. Madrid. Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, Mayor, I was going to bring up a couple of those same issues, so you already answered those for me. My concern is that we haven't really had enough time to figure out, those three of us that would be walking out of here on the next local cluster vote, which would be November 19. And I personally would like a little more time to think about that one, whether we're going to go 19 or 21 or just keep it in March. And I totally agree with Manager Madrid when he says when you've got a school board, soil water conservation, you may have the county on there, you may have Williamsburg on there, you could have Elephant Butte on there, and that it does take a little bit of concentration and you know, impact away from putting the commissioners in that we really would be maybe doing a little better study on. So I thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments, questions, concerns?
Madam Mayor, I might be able to respond a little bit to Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Clark's one of your questions about our well, hello, something just came straight off the wall. Our ballot would not necessarily have the trustees for Williamsburg or Elephant Butte because it would be a different district. But see, the county clerk would be required to have different ballots for every different district. For example, when I was in Alamogordo, I had 7 districts, so I had 7 different ballots because, you know, they only vote on their own commissioner because they were districted. So, you know, and the county clerk would be responsible to do that. So I know that we wouldn't have Williamsburg or Elephant Butte, but we would have all the other nonpartisans.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Clerk Canton, can you also explain the canvassing process, that who will do the canvassing in the future, even though we keep our election as we have in the past, continuing forward, but who will do the actual canvassing after the election?
Absolutely. Right now, the new local election includes that the county commission will be our canvassing board. And in our case, it's wonderful, you know, because I have a great working relationship with all of them. And of course, Commissioner Luna was a city commissioner, so she's kind of well aware of how they work just a little bit. And county manager as well, you know. We have a good working relationship, so that's not that big of a deal. I know that we had put in the cleanup bill a possibility for a municipality to at least have 1 or 2 of their own representatives with the county commission if we had to keep it the county commission. Because as you can imagine, with 33 counties in the state, we have quite a few municipalities that don't get along with theirs. But we're fortunate not to have that problem. So it'll be county, and hopefully with the cleanup bill, we'll be able to appoint 1 or 2 of our own representatives if we feel it's necessary.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a point. I think the important thing to note here is that this the decision, if we chose to keep our own election, it does not lock us into that option forever. We always have the opportunity to change that. Now, normally I would be for, especially in a small county, population-wise, like we have, is for cooperation and consolidation. And there are many areas where I believe that is beneficial. And I think the commission needs to work more closely with their other counterparts in the county. But I think in this case, it's important for us to stay separate.
there was a comment made about transparency during public comment. And it's much easier to maintain transparency on the election process if we do it ourselves, and it is not hidden, or I shouldn't say hidden, it is not obscured by everything else that's going on in a large countywide election. And again, it gives the voters more time and to pay attention to their city representatives, and I have every faith in our clerk and her assistants that they would conduct these elections in a forthright and honest manner in the same way they've always been done.
Thank you, Commissioner Zaghetti. Clerk Canton, I do have to point out one, possibly a typo here. In the commission action form, it's resolution number 25, but on the actual resolution, you have number 26.
Yes.
So,
I believe I handed out a revised one for you, and if not, then in my originals, yes, that change has been made. The correct number is 25.
Thank you.
That coordinates with the agenda.
Thank you. Is there any further questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion.
Mayor, I would move that we accept or approve resolution number 25, 2018-2019, confirming the continuation of municipal elections to be conducted on municipal officer election day in March of even-numbered years.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 25, 2018-19, confirming the continuation of municipal elections to be conducted on municipal officer election day in March of even-numbered years, as presented by Renee Canton, our city clerk. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Hirschler.
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Aye.
Honorable George Zaghetti.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item H1, discussion action DFA second quarter budget report. Melissa Torres, Finance Director.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager Madrid. I apologize. I was just going to wait until it gets on the screen for you guys. One of the things I'm going to go ahead and start with, though, is give you a summary before we start the actual highlights of our second quarter. As our second quarter, we should be at 50%. There's a couple of factors that we definitely want to point out. One, which is we received our finance audit, and one of the things that we're trying to get resolved is ensuring that we do POs throughout the whole fiscal year. The way we were previously doing it was that we were encumbering reoccurring services, and then we would close the PO. So that's one of the big changes that you're going to see on the expense side. For example, your reoccurring expenses like utilities. We know what our utilities are going to be at the beginning of the fiscal year, and we know what they should be by the end of the fiscal year. So that's something that we should have what is called as an open PO throughout that. And so that's definitely one of the things that you are going to see that has changed throughout our expenses, because we have a lot more encumbrances for reoccurring services or goods that we are having. The other thing that we want to bring to your attention is that with so much management, upper management change, I think that bringing City Manager Madrid with the financial background that he has is a really great breath of fresh air, where we're having to go through every single fund, every single expense, every single revenue right now. And so one of the things that we will be doing in the next week or so is we will be meeting with all our directors, supervisors, and manager and do a mid-year review. During that mid-review, we will be overseeing and looking at the expense side of things, the revenue side of things, and any projects that may be coming in the last 6 months, and any expenses that we had not focused on this new fiscal year. So our overall theme will be, when we visit our management team for the city, will be stabilizing our budget. So hopefully by the next quarter, we will see a lot more of a stabilized budget and an overall, the reoccurring expenses are for the necessary needs versus the wants. With that being said, I'll open up our highlight of the second quarter. The General Enterprise Fund, we are at 49.53% on our revenue, which is really good. One of the things that we do want to disclose is this is only 5 months. And so usually we have 6 months in there, but unfortunately we had not received our GRT to post that one on the time. So we should see a good little boost by the third quarter. Municipal pool, 43.20. I definitely want to just take one little pause to give that attention, because we haven't seen that kind of increase in the pool in quite some time. Cemetery is 67.47. Utility office is 47.21. The electric is 53.43. The water is 50.77. The solid waste is 47.60. The wastewater is 50.95. The transfer station is 43.33. The golf course is 32.35. And airport 61.74. So overall, our enterprise funds and our general revenue is looking really good and are coming in as we projected. Again, going over the overall expenditures, there are several things that we just want to bring to your attention. One of the things that we want to bring to your attention is our insurance and utilities. As many of you guys know, our IT infrastructure was very old. And one of the things that we were having a lot of problems with was this new Tyler system. The Tyler system was basically like a Rolls-Royce engine at the Pinto IT infrastructure. It was taking most of our staff up to 20 to 30 minutes to get our programs running. So one of the things that we did this fiscal year was we brought in TDS to do fiber, which has been such a tremendous help to City Hall and also the field. I mean, it wasn't one location. It was every field office that was included in that. In turn, we are also looking at upgrading our phone systems with this too, now that we've invested in our fiber system. So that's one of the things that, just to bring to your attention on the high expense side. On the other enterprises, again, we have a lot of these, such as like the electric department or the solid waste, wastewater, that you see over the 50%, and that is because of the encumbrances that they have. And we reviewed that also. Going into the special revenue and expenditures, corrections, 34%, state fire, 61%, LEPF is at 91%, lodgers, 48%, Main Street at 53%, recreation at 9%, veterans wall, 0, state library at 19, PDGRT. The one that's really low is your recreation, and I just want you to note that that is not a self-revenue generated fund. That fund money comes through the general fund. Expenditures, the one that brings to our attention is corrections, This funds, both 201 is for anything that's going through the municipal court. And then, of course, the recreation, I think that you guys have made many comments and have seen our great parks and the, definitely the improvements that we are making and continue to make. And next is your capital projects, revenue and expenditures. Impact fees, Fund 301. Again, we can only do projections on that, and we've been getting good impact fees coming in. So that's why our revenue is at 35.12. Airport, we have the fuel farm Schedule 3 that's happening. And as we are expending, we are also getting our reimbursements on a timely basis. On your expenditures, the one that we want to bring to your attention is probably Fund 306, and that one is where our Colonias project is and where our water and wastewater loans are paid out of. Going into the GRT, we're really pleased to announce that our GRT is up than it was last fiscal year. And as we know, last fiscal year was a pretty dry year from our previous year. But if you look at our previous year where we were getting really good GRT because of the veterans new wing that they put in, we're already surpassing that. So that's really great news for us. Again, it's about us coming in now and stabilizing our expenses and trying to get through this fiscal year with these additional expenses that we did not anticipate that were coming in for this fiscal year. If we look into our chart of our GRT, it appears we are $272,000 over from last year. Again, I just want to remind you that this is only a 5 month versus 6 months. And finally, our lodgers tax revenue, we are up $11,113. So that's really good. Again, our revenues are doing really good. Now, just getting everything stabilized. And we stand for any questions at this time.
Thank you, Melissa. Manager Madrid, do you have any comments, questions, concerns?
Mayor, Commissioners, this is going to be probably my biggest area of focus for the next month or two, because we have good revenues, we have reasonable expenditures. We don't seem to be budgeting in the right place or spending from the right areas. The first thing we need to do is make sure that our appropriations are in the right place. You're going to see some budgets that are overexpended, not because they're not reasonable, but because they were under budgeted in the beginning. There's going to be some that were over budgeted, that are underspent. We're going to get this year's budget in line as much as possible. In addition to that, we want to increase our reserves. We want to review our debt service for now and the next 15 or 20 years. We want to find out what our capacity is for additional funding. This is all information that we would need to get even more funding. If we wanted to go to the Finance Authority, if we wanted to qualify for hardship through a DOT funding. So we have a lot of work to do. And when I sit down with the department heads in these budget hearings, it's gonna be a tool, a management tool also, because I'm gonna expect them to explain to me as if I was a 10-year-old that I've never seen anything in the city before, which is true. But it's gonna be also an education of operations for me personally, and that's going to be our approach. It's going to be completely transparent. I think anything that goes through my office and her office, it's public record anyway. So that'll be the process, and I'll update you as we move forward with it. I think everyone can expect us to tighten our belts for a little while until we get a real good handle on this, because right now, since I've been here, we've put out a few fires, and we're getting a grip on things. Just like the attorney said, you know, I'm getting more informed as to our legal matters, our consultants, what are we doing, what do we need them for? We have vacancies in leadership that we need to fill. We had vacancy savings there, but we're compensating by using other resources. So, you know, savings may appear to be there. We've had to pay terminal leave for leadership positions that have been gone. So there's very little normal in this year's budget, and we want to get it more towards normal. And I think Melissa and I are going to get to be very close buddies, even though we may not get along in all our decisions. We'll be knowing each other really well in the next month, and I'll update you as we go along.
Thank you, Manager Madrid. Any further questions, comments, concerns?
I do.
Commissioner Pro Tem Clark.
Of course, always. I can't let Ms. Torres get out of here without me saying something. I'm making it up just for fun. No, I'm not. And I really, I think you've done a great job just hanging it by yourself, waiting for us to do this. So I think you two are going to be good buddies, and it's okay if you don't get along sometimes. We just don't want to hear about it. I do have a couple of questions, Ms. Torres. Is the lodger's tax delayed also with the GRT?
No, ma'am. We
You
did
got the
receive that on
lodger's tax
time.
check?
Yes, ma'am.
So is the 308 GRT, was that an estimate for December, or do we know that that's a good figure, we just haven't gotten the check?
That is a good figure.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And is part of that increase due to the construction of the hospital and the school? Are we getting GRT from both of those now?
You know what? I could not answer that question completely. I will look into it. I haven't had a chance to see our breakdown of where the majority of the GRT is coming in. I know that the big downfall that we received last fiscal year, we also had the big project at Cielo Vista that we had here. That was also just closed up last month. So that was also a good little project that contributes. We have our water, wastewater projects that are happening too, so that's also helping us a little bit here and there. But to answer your question direct, Mayor Pro Tem, I would have to definitely look at that. And then what I can do is, as I have done in the past, is I will give you guys a breakdown and then send that to you guys via email. Per Mr. Madrid's permission.
Yeah, I'd just be really curious to see what that is, because it's going to change how we budget for next year too, when those projects finish.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Torres.
Yes,
I'm not
ma'am.
going to bother you anymore.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Any further questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion to approve the DFA second quarter budget report.
So moved.
A second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the DFA second quarter report, budget report as submitted and noted by Melissa Torres, our finance director. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on our agenda this morning is item H2, discussion action, appointments of various external boards and committees to replace Steve Green. Renee Kenton, our city clerk, will identify those. Looks like we have 2A, Sierra County Recreation and Tourism Advisory Board, 2B, Joint Powers Commission, Sierra Vista Hospital, and 2C, South Central Council of Governments, SCCOG, and Regional Planning Organization, RPO. Renee?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for that fill-in. Madam Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager, as you can see from the Commission Action Form, there are a few vacancies that we need to fill that former Mayor Steve Green served in. So starting with A, this year, County Recreation and Tourism Advisory Board, you know, Mayor Pro Tem Clark and Mayor Green served on this one, and so the commission will need to appoint a member to fill the vacancy for that. And I know Mayor Pro Tem Clark can probably give a little more detail on when the meetings are and such.
You want me to do that now?
Sure.
So I did get some clarification on this one this morning, and for Mayor and Commissioners, for your information, I'm serving on the Tourism Board and have done since 2006. And prior to being a commissioner, I was on a representative from the hotel industry, and now I'm currently serving on that board as a member of this commission. And it was an alternate to the city manager. So Mr. Green is serving on the Sierra County Recreation and Tourism Advisory Board as a representative of the Arts Council. So he is not somebody, in my estimation, that we would be replacing. So I would like to ask, with all due respect, that we pull A out of there because it doesn't exist. And Manager Madrid, you're always welcome to come to one of those meetings. It's the first Tuesday of every month at 9 o'clock at the Main Street offices on Main Street. And when you're there, you vote. When you're not there, I vote. That's how that works. Thank you, Clerk Catton.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Clark, for clearing up that.
Okay, so then we'll move on with item B for the Joint Powers Commission for Sierra Vista Hospital. The city has 3 elected officials who currently serve, including former Mayor Green, who was the vice chair. That does not mean that you guys need to select the vice chair. They do that amongst themselves. And Mayor Whitehead and Mayor Pro Tem Clark, and Commissioner Heschler is currently the alternate. And so with that, we would need one member to serve in that vacancy for Mayor Green.
Clerk Catton, wouldn't just automatically the alternate step into that position that's vacated?
Absolutely.
Everyone too.
Okay.
And then maybe you may want to appoint another alternate in case.
For another alternate, appoint one of the other commissioners as an alternate.
So one of you two are going to have to volunteer.
Come on, both of you.
I got it.
You got it.
You got it? Paul will be our
You wanna do it?
And do you want to make a separate motion for that so we can do that as we go, or do you want to do them all at the end?
I think we should do it separately. I think we should have, because you have
We dropped A.
A, B, and C, so.
Yeah, we
Okay,
dropped
so then
A.
we would have to move to put,
To approve Commissioner Heschler as the voting member and.
Yes, the voting member, and then Commissioner Paul as the alternate.
As the alternate.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we appoint Commissioner Heschler as the voting member of the JPC board, and we appoint Paul Baca as the alternate to the JPC board. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. So the last item is C for the South Central Council of Governments and also the Regional Planning Organization. And Mayor Green currently serves on that, and Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead serves as the alternate. And generally, it's the chief elected official that serves on that board. So I think that I'll open that up for discussion. But I know in the past for Council of Governments, they have allowed staff members as well serve. But generally, the way the city of TRC has worked, it's been our chief elected official. And if they're not available, then Mayor Pro Tem or whoever else is the alternate.
And I don't mind serving. I served before when I was the mayor on the South Central Council of Governments, so I don't mind doing that. But if someone else wants to take that role, they're more than welcome to do that.
Come on, Commissioner Seghetti, you're getting off awful easy here.
Yeah, well, I was actually holding out for the tourism board. You pulled that one out.
Sorry,
from
I
underneath.
pulled that out from underneath your feet.
And I would, I'm really new to this. I kind of feel uncomfortable taking the lead on it, but I would have no objections to being the alternate for that.
Thank you.
Right, and that's kind of where I was going with that, because I don't know enough about South Central Council of Governments, and the hospital's got enough of our attention, but...
I do know that the Council of Governments, Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager, you know, they can be very instrumental in assisting us with getting funding, being the larger, you know, the larger entity in our county, you know, it's really good for us to be a part of that, so we learn some of those things as well. And the Regional Planning Organization also, they will assist us in their recommendations for some of that funding, holds a lot of weight. So
I'll make a motion that we appoint Mayor Sandra Whitehead as the representative for SCOG and RPO, with the alternate as Commissioner Sugeti.
I have a motion and a second to appoint Sandra Whitehead as the representative for SCOG and the RPO, and Commissioner Sugeti as the alternate. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Clerk Canton. Item H3 has been pulled, so we'll go down to item H4, discussion action, assistance to federal employees and contractors affected by the government shutdown. Commissioner George Sugeti.
Okay. Actually, I was hoping this would be a moot point by the time the meeting came around, but unfortunately it still goes on. During the previous long shutdown, I was a federal employee, and fortunately my wife was working, and I had had the job for a while and had a little bit of reserve money, but actually my kids were older teenagers at the time, so we were looking at, you know, college expenses coming up and all that. And also, because of my job, I was one of those people that was required to work. So I was working for that period without pay. And that like many people now, have that issue. They can't go out and find another job to supplement their income during that time period. I said we had a little bit put aside, and we were able to get through. But by the time it was over and they started issuing paychecks and such, if we would have gone on another week or so, we would have been really hurting. And I really feel for the people that are affected by this. And not just the employees. We have a lot of people here in town who work on a contract basis for the federal government. I know one individual, half of her income comes from a contract with the Forest Service. And so she is out there, doing whatever she can to scrape up a couple extra bucks to support herself and her family. Now, what I'm proposing, would be open to any federal employee or contractor who is not receiving a paycheck during this shutdown. Now the responsibility would be on these individuals to contact the utility office themselves. And what I propose is that we waive any late fees on utility bills during this period and have a moratorium on service disconnects. And really what I'm saying is we allow these individuals to carry a negative balance on their account, but not mark the accounts as being delinquent for this time period. And now, because once everything starts up again, there will be a delay in getting the checks issued and everything, that this would stay in effect until 45 days after the government shutdown is resolved. And during that time, within 45 days after the shutdown, that the individuals would have to come into the utility office where they can discuss what their balance is, what they owe, and make arrangements with the utility office to bring their accounts up to date. I have been down, spent some time with Sonia down at the utility office on some PUAB-related matters, and I was there when people came in and had difficulty with their payments. And I have to commend our utility office for the compassion that they show helping people to resolve their accounts without, adverse actions being taken. I know that if these people were dealing with what is it, the utility, El Paso Electric or the other big utilities, New Mexico Gas, they would not allow them the latitude that our utility office does here. And I commend them for it. But I think in this case, especially now that this has been protracted this long and prospects of it ending are questionable at best, I think it's important that the city show a little compassion and support for these people, and again, just basically allow them to not mark their accounts as being delinquent until this issue has been resolved.
Thank you, Commissioner Zaghetti. Manager Madrid, comments, questions,
Mayor,
concerns?
Commissioner, we have the tools in place to make this accommodation. I want to just state for everyone that this is not modifying the ordinance or changing any of our laws or anything. It's a temporary accommodation that we have the ability to make and that any government should make. So rest assured, we have the ability to carry this out. This vote would be considered a direction to do so.
I have to commend you, Commissioner Zaghetti, for bringing this up. You think about how many people are actually affected by a federal furlough or a layoff, and it actually is kind of a bigger effect than we would ever even know, because it trickles, and the trickle we never get a chance to see. But my curious is 45 days enough after the government starts up? Because if you're 2 months in arrears, you may need to make payment arrangements for a period of time also.
Right.
And so I'm thinking that maybe we could extend that just a little bit, just in case, because I don't see an end to this government shutdown for a while. And I don't know, Commissioner Heschler, are you guys affected by this a little bit out?
No, we're mostly state entities.
Your state?
They're not affected, but I am certainly concerned.
But yeah, I mean, the state's going to be affected with federal monies. We're affected as a city by USDA, obviously, so it's hitting everybody.
Federal funds.
Yeah, I did add a note on the end, if the shutdown extends beyond 60 days, that we can look at that
extension.
That extension, yeah. And 45 days, and it all depends upon the timing. If the shutdown ends one day into a new pay period, that would mean that it would be 2 more weeks, 2 additional weeks before the paycheck comes in, rather than if the shutdown was at the last day of the pay period. So 45 days was a shot. If we want to change that, if we want to make it 60 days, that.
Well, maybe we could just bring this back in 2 weeks if the government hasn't started back up again, and maybe just start with a 60-day or something. I don't know. Go ahead.
Mayor, Commissioners, I would suggest not having a time limit, and we could handle it administratively.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that was my question was, this is going to require any kind of legal action by the commission. We need to change our ordinances or anything like that. But I spoke with the city manager yesterday, and you believe from your research already that we already are set. We can do this administratively. So
Yes.
I'll stand by if you need me to research anything or prepare any amendments to our current ordinance. I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, my thought was there on that limit is that we need to make sure that the people involved will come back to the utility office in a timely manner and make those arrangements, and then we can handle that administratively, but I think we need to have a limit. Say, when this shuts down, you have so much time to come in, contact the utility office, and either pay it off or make arrangements.
And that could be done in-house. Melissa?
If I may, we can handle it administratively, and this is one thing that we are putting into the plan a couple of weeks ago. I think that one of the things, as you stated, that the utility office has the empathy for our customers. I think that's what we want to do for them just as much. And we want to make sure we have that case-to-case with our customers. Because sometimes there's those customers that can pay an additional $200 plus a payment. Or there's some that need a little head start, maybe $50 plus a payment, where we can make those kind of arrangements with them to make sure that they are successful and then also get their bill paid within a timely manner. So I just wanted to add that, sir.
Thank you, Melissa.
But thank you for your consideration.
So it could basically state that within 45 days, they need to come into the utility office to make arrangements.
Right.
Okay. Do we need to take action on this?
Yes, do we need to take action on this?
A vote's not required, I think.
Can we just ask, we can just instruct you to go ahead and handle this administratively?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I'll consider that direction.
We would like to
Direction
instruct Manager Madrid to take action on this discussion here regarding the federal employees and any utility bills that they may have hardship with.
Done.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item E, reports. Number 1, City Manager.
Mayor, Commissioners, you've received some updates on some initiatives that have been going on in my office already. I do want to add one more, and I think it's a couple of important community issues, and I'd like to call on the chief in 5 minutes or less to give us an update on the homeless initiative and the instruction given to officers about the enforcement regarding ATVs.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The Sierra County Beggar/Panhandler initiative, you've probably been reading about it, did a lot of media coverage on that. It's kind of unique, and we're actually, I did a video over the weekend to explain to the officers basically what's going on. It's about a 5 or 6 minute video. I sent it to the city manager. Maybe he shared it with you, I don't know. But basically, the initiative is the major, concept, principle is to change the mindset of our community. That's the big thing. Commissioner Heschler contacted me 4 or 5 months ago, and we talked. This is nothing unique to our city. This is a nationwide dilemma. When I had a city big as Las Cruces as chief, I had 5 or 6 exits, and they were just loaded with beggars and panhandlers, and it was, quality of life issue, and laws were being developed and so forth. We're not fortunately, we're not as serious as that. We had maybe Date Street on Ashbaugh, Walmart. I saw one on the other day at Marie, and maybe some at the Williamsburg exit. So we're really not inundated as bad as Albuquerque and so forth. They have 30 places in Albuquerque where they have beggars stopping cars and causing havoc and so forth. We have maybe 4. So we put together. I chaired a coalition. Of course, the commission was on there, and just about everybody in the city that has a in this interest. The Ministerial Association, Tina Parks from the Department of Human Services, George Lee, DWI, a couple of my executives, myself. It's a broad overview of people that really are concerned and really want to help. A bunch of pastors in there, and the sheriff, by the way, was part of it. We actually met twice, and we determined the solution. Our solution is, and I got some talking points here, basically, there are 7 things that I think is important. Number 1, we're going to give the beggars and panhandlers the assistance they need in the right place. We're going to show donations are not being used for unhealthy purposes. They say about 70% of beggars use whatever money is given directly to them in their left hand or right hand for unhealthy reasons, drugs, tobacco, alcohol, you name it. So we're going to give it, make sure it goes to the right place. I hooked up with the United Way of Southwest New Mexico, Bill Connor, the CEO. We've talked. He is so happy. He's never had he's never gained any traction in our county. Now he's given us an option to people to pay 3 different ways. One is on your cell phone. It's ridiculously easy. So we've got that. The money's going to go to the United Way, and they're going to distribute it to our food pantries, to the homeless shelter in Las Cruces, to the Ministerial Association, who helps with transients. They give us, lodging for the transients, food, and gas. 3, we need to educate the public. I mentioned that about the mindset change. Traffic safety. We're not going to have cars slowing down, as some cities have developed laws on that. Quality of life. Having beggars on the corner is not really a nice thing. And know they need help, but it will probably, hopefully, they'll realize and go to the places that we recommend on the little brochure or little flyer we give them to get help, and maybe they'll go somewhere else. But the thing is, we want them to get the help they need. And the last thing that I think is really important is we're not legislating any more laws. Every city that's developed laws to stop this has got the ACLU on the back. We're not going to have that because we're giving them up. In fact, Commissioner Heschel, when I worked up the little flyer, he made sure that the first sentence, this is to persons in need of food, housing, and other assistance. This is what they get, a piece of paper. My officers in the Sheriff's Department are actually putting this in the hands of the beggars. The first line states where they can go for help, which is 102 Barton Street, to the Department of Human Services Income Support Division. She's expecting them to show up and tell them where to get help. And then it reads on the mission statement of the coalition, which is basically to change the mindset of our community. And then on the obverse side is the form that goes to the citizens. And this tells our citizens, which I'll be giving out at meetings, the sheriff's going to give out at meetings, what we're doing and what it's all about. So with that, I think it's a win-win. Beggars are getting the help they need. Citizens aren't giving them money to enable them to do the wrong things with the money. And it might help our community look a little bit better. So with that, any questions on that? Second issue, not a big issue, but I did a video again this weekend on the OHV. It's a 5 or 6 minute video for my officers. They're going to watch it. They're going to sign off that they read it, and it basically is the key points of the law. What they must wear. If they're under 18, they must have a helmet. The no HV must have muffler, brakes, mirror, all the little rules. And they're being instructed. We want to go real light on this. We want to be reasonable. The first 90 days will be warnings, and then and unless it's a real heinous kind of case, and thereafter that it could be a citation, and they need to keep a record of the complaints, because I promised the commission that you'll get heads up on what's going on, the citations, the warnings, and any complaints we get for the first year. I think that's what we talked about, the first year. We went from 6 months to a year unless you want different. So with that, any questions?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Manager. Attorney Rubin, do you have a report at this time?
I just want to update you that the negotiations with Gravity Pad are ongoing, going back and forth proposals, I think we're getting pretty close to coming up with an agreement, so I feel pretty good about the chances of this coming back in front of you the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zagetti, do you have a report at this time?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Baca? Commissioner Heschler?
Just a quick announcement. Some of you have read in the paper that we have a new company at Spaceport America. The company is called Spin Launch. They're going to hire or bring 20 new jobs to New Mexico. Hopefully, we're going to hire some folks from here and from Las Cruces. They're going to do a $7 million build-out of infrastructure at Spaceport America. $1 million additional in infrastructure and roads and things of that nature. We have plenty of room. Spaceport America is 18,000 acres out there. This is one of 6 contracts that Spaceport America is currently working on. Obviously, Virgin Galactic is our anchor tenant, but now we have a second major company going to work out there, so it's really nice to see that, and we keep growing. Our next commission meeting, I've invited the person in charge of Virgin Galactic on the local level, Mr. Jason Lasich, to appear for a quick presentation to our commission, and so I think it'll be enlightening to hear what's going on out there, and I'm really excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Heschler. Mayor Pro Tem Clark? No report?
I've said enough all day.
I'll see how you are, and guess what? I don't have a report. Yay. Next city commission meeting is Wednesday, February 13th, 2019, 9 o'clock a.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Adjourned. Need to see you.